So kind of like the parents cannot kind of mechanically force a trait into a child. What they can do is they can make an example. And so children really pick it up when it becomes relevant to them. And so one is then it's around 16, 17 years of age. And second, later in adulthood. This is when, children start building their own family life. You shouldn't worry about drinking moderately and within a reason when you have a 7 or 8-year-old, because at that age, the children don't really understand. They don't even know, it's not on their radar. They don't even know how to place it.
So welcome to a short video news interview from Alcohol Review. Welcome also to Sergey Alexeev from the University of New South Wales.
Thanks for having me, Phil. It's a pleasure to have this interview with you.
Likewise. Sergey, you published a paper this week on the influence of parents' home drinking on their offspring, whether they're children, teenagers or adults. And one of the striking things about it was that it offered some practical recommendations. I know they came from other bits of research as well, but to avoid sort of burying the lead for those people aren't so deep in the research, could you just start by summarizing some of the recommendations that came out of your wider research?
Yeah, so I guess what's really great about this study is that we're using a nationally representative data, and so this is like it's a Australia national data set, and it kind of spans 23 years. And so what's the beauty of this is that we can observe, for example, children residing with their parents in the beginning of the period, and then at the end we can also even observe them leaving the household and spawning their own household. So we can really observe multi-generational kind of span of transmission. And so because previous evidence within this space, they were usually tracking a convenience samples. It might be just a self-selected kind of sample for a shorter periods of time, and this sample is really large. And so and then I'm also using techniques which are kind of really strong econometrics techniques, which from econometrics is, and essentially there's two points in time when transmission seems to matter the most. And so one is then it's around 16, 17 years of age. And second, later in adulthood. This is when, children start building their own family life.
Yeah. So for a parent, just to go back to sort of the, man or woman on the street, what can they sort of draw from this? That, as a parent, what kind of things might they be doing to reduce the risk for their families?
Yeah, so I think the empirical evidence really points to I'm kind of advancing so-called like a rational transmission view of traits, and that's a bit different from how transmission has been framed kind of in the addiction space. And so essentially, the broader view is like this. So kind of like the parents cannot kind of mechanically force a trait into a child. What they can do is they can make an example. And so children really pick it up when it becomes relevant to them. So with alcohol, with alcohol, well, children are around 15, 16 years of age. This is when teenagers, they start going to parties, and then they're starting to understand, what is it to be like a normal adult, and how alcohol kind of fits into all this into adult life. And kind of before that, the lesson could be there, but it's going to be dormant. Let me just give you a few examples. Okay, for example, let's say that you have a 6-year-old and you really want to kind of transmit your habit of eating vegetables and protein, but a 6-year-old is not going to listen to this, because a 6-year-old, it doesn't even understand the relevance of good food, because he still has great energy levels. They're like metabolic miracles. Another example could be, for example, and so therefore it's going to be really, it wouldn't be possible to really retain that trait. You wouldn't be able to make a 6-year-old eat vegetables. And so another example is, let's say I'm like a 40-year-old, and all my life, my father has been telling me, listen, you have to look out for your heart. Like, this is the weakness of our kind of family line. And it was just noise. I would never listen to this. But now I'm 40, and I finally understand what he meant. And now, we talk about this a lot. And so again, with drinking is like this. So when you try, let's say that there has been a lot of kind of suggestions that if you drink alcohol around like a 7-year-old, you might damage a child somehow. But so what the data shows, this one is like a conceptual view which kind of is being supported by this data, is that it's probably a 7-year-old probably wouldn't pay much attention to your drinking habits, because unless you drink so much that you just become like a horrible parent, and you can like hurt your child or something. But that would be like a separate issue. And so I guess like it's kind of like it's you shouldn't worry about drinking moderately and within a reason when you have a 7 or 8-year-old. Because at that age, the children don't really understand. They don't even know, it's not on their radar. They don't even know how to place it. And so but when they're 16 or 17 years of age, this is when they kind of realize that they start initiate. This is when they, start kind of doing, they initiate kind of this, complex social interactions, they have to understand how drinking fits into all this kind of complex social rituals that we play. And again, what parents can do the best, they can basically show how drinking can be used, for example, to develop social capital, develop relationship, because there's a lot of evidence showing that drinking in moderation is actually good for your work, relationship, for your wages. There's papers showing that drinking in moderation improves, you have better social capital. So it's, think about like a Homer Simpson, like a sort of like a really nice guy who everyone wants to be friends with, or something like this, like drink a little bit is fine. I don't know. So there's another period that comes out, and later on, when sorry, I feel like I just kind of.
That's okay. And no. I mean, I think I picked out, at least from sort of summary of some of your research, that this period in this sort of teenage period when people are doing, I think what described in the piece is identity forming and role transition. Yes. And this is a point at which your parents' behavior might sort of you might start to see that as a way of a role model, or some way of dealing with your nearly adult life. Is that a fair sort of summary? Yeah, and just to emphasize that if you want to dig into the detail of this research, I'll put a link in the YouTube video description, also on the Alcohol Review website page. So if you want to do that, then you can get really into the weeds on some of the things that Sergey has described. More broadly, this fits into a theme, as I think you've touched on in your previous answer, of research around the home as a drinking venue. It's something that I've sort of been banging the drum on for some time. It's often perceived as a relatively benign place for alcohol drinking, but sort of statistically speaking, I know you're a statistician, it's actually one of the riskier places we can drink, because there's no people to overlook us. We can sort of we can drink, as and when we feel like. I just wonder whether what you've done could it's part of that body of research, but is there more to be done in that area as a research topic?
Oh yeah, no, this would be so, because in my research, I guess I'm looking more of at the how trade transmits on average. And in fact, in my sample, I actually only look at the full families. So for example, I don't have a single families. I intentionally try to have like a more or less a clean kind of, in the sense that I'm trying not to mix environments, the ones that you mentioned, for example, because there's a lot of drinking kind of coincides when there's a household in distress, let's say a single parent, or like a separation period. So there is a lot of things come into play. There's a lot of different factors, and in my sample, I actually only look at the full families when I only have, let's say, an offspring, and there's a identifiable father and identifiable mother, but so, and in a way, this it kind of takes out of the sample all those extreme cases, the one that you mentioned. So I'm also looking. I don't look at the extreme cases, for example, when people who drink like some obscene amount of alcohol, or just, for example, don't drink at all. The other extreme. So that's this is not a particular focus for that paper. This is more like again a normal transmission of traits, but this is a big topic. A lot can be done.
Okay, thank you very much. I will wrap it up right there. I have to say, I had an experience myself when I was a smoker, which I'm no longer a smoker, of going to a friend's house and puffing away on my cancer stick and seeing his 6-year-old child copying me with a pen. And it did make me think twice about what I was doing. Thank you so much for sparing the time. It's been a great pleasure to talk to you, and I'm sure we'll come back to this again.
Thanks, Phil.